Hey guys, Ashley here. In today's video, we're going to talk about the 5 things that now I remember hating about car lifing. And, it's like you don't think about them if you're not living in your car. And once you start up again, just like Celine Dion once said, it's all coming back to me now. So I got some good ones for you, and maybe some that, if there's any potential car lifers out there, something to think about. So let's get into today's video. If you like my content and find any value in it, want to see more of where I'm going, what I'm doing, and the things that I'm thinking up, click like, click subscribe, and heck, even share my channel with somebody else or any of my videos. Parents seem to love me, so maybe send me to them. So, where do we start? No, how about let's start with number 1. Number 1 for me, I would say, and this is not in the order of the most annoying, however, number 1, we'll just use it right now, is finding shade. So unless you live in your car, you don't quite understand how important it is to park your car in shade, and then also to continue to chase shade all day. So that's the tedious part. Is already now, I don't even know what time it is, but I've already moved my car about 4 times because you push it into shade a little bit more, you push it into shade a little bit more, and at some point you just can't avoid the sun. You got to go somewhere else. Same thing with being in a town or a city. It's you find a shady spot and you go sit at a coffee shop, or you go walk around, and by the time you get back in maybe an hour, it's like your car's in full sun. So once again, it's important because your entire life is in the car right now. So you don't want to have everything superheated. But boy, oh boy, can it get pretty tedious to have to move your car around multiple times in a day. And especially when you're in an area that there's a lot of car lifers and van lifers, they're all doing the same. So it's kind of like playing musical chairs here with the shady spots. And if they've been living here a lot longer than you have, they already know where the 3 o'clock spot is and where the 5 o'clock spot is. So either way, that for me is probably number 1. I would say number 2 then, since it's pressing on my mind, is the amount of clutter and I'll call it item management. If you dread house cleaning at your actual house, it's more laborious in your car. You have to do it multiple times a day. I do a good one in the morning and usually 1 or 2 throughout the day, just to rearrange everything that's in your car, because you get kind of lazy, you kind of get sloppy, and you lay things in piles here and they build up. And yeah, it's not exactly the way you want to spend your day, is constantly rearranging all of your stuff. But in order to access some of the spaces and some of the items that maybe you have tucked away, but also just if you're somebody who likes at least a semi-cleanly space, that is something you will have to do multiple times a day. I'd say number 3 for me was, and probably still is, finding a place to sleep at night. So right now I'm fortunate to be in, I'll call it a pretty car life positive town. But there are some times where you will be places and there is a lot of no parking signs, no overnight parking. A couple of times, not during this last 2 weeks, this current go, but in the last probably year or so, there were times that I was getting the knock 2 or 3 times a week. And what that is, for people who don't know, is when you're parked somewhere and it's questionable and somebody comes, whether it's a property owner or the police, or somebody comes to knock on your window at 3 in the morning and makes you move your vehicle. And it doesn't sound terrible, except for a couple of times it would be that I had both the seats packed in the front, and then you have to rearrange your whole car in order to drive it. And it's also February in Colorado, and it's -10 out, and all of the things. So obviously with a little pre-preparation, you can kind of get an idea. There are apps out there to help you maybe navigate where you can go, but there's still always that chance of getting that knock. And I always remember, and I still to this day have a little bit of PTSD, even though pretty much all of the spots that I've picked, I know I'm okay. However, it's one of those things where you still have that little tiny bit of anxiety, like who's going to drive past and who's going to, say something, and who's going to. So either way, I'd say finding a place to sleep is one of my things that I always hated. Yeah, we'll go with that. I'd say number 4 would be the changes in weather. I woke up this morning and absolutely loved where I was, and it was a relatively warm night last night, and I laid there for an extended period of time, and it was just so lovely. Went off, made my coffee. I'm a fair weather type of camper, I'll call it. But before, when I was living in my car, and a couple of times, like I said, I've been in many different states for winters so that I could snowboard, but boy, does it get rough when it's cold. Not only are you sleeping cold, and it doesn't matter how much stuff you own, it's like when it's 0 out, it's 0 in your car. It doesn't matter if you insulate the windows and all this other stuff, it eventually gets cold. But then on top of that, it's like cooking out the back of your car, because that's where my stove always was. And when it's cold or it's rainy, it's not fun. It's not fun to basically do your survival when the weather changes. Let alone the fact that when you're sleeping in the back of your car and you have your windows cracked for ventilation, and then all of a sudden you start hearing rain. It's 3 in the morning and it starts to pour. So then you have to climb in the front, turn everything on, close all your windows. So just another pet peeve of mine of this wouldn't happen to you if you live in your house. However, because of the means of living that I have currently, these are just some things that I get to deal with. And I'd say for my last one, this one might just be gender specific. However, I'll call it the when nature calls, we'll call it. Being a female, sleeping in the back of your vehicle, and having to pee at 2 in the morning when it's cold or windy or raining, or even just fair weather. If you're in a city, it's not fun. I'm gonna spare you on some of the stories. Maybe that'll be for when I get to know you guys a little better. You get to know me a little better. But yeah, it gets interesting and it's inconvenience when you have to maybe use some facilities. If you're not in the wilderness, like I've been lately, and you're in a town or in a city, and you have to pee at 2 in the morning, or you have to poo at 2 in the morning, these are all things that maybe I didn't think about before, and now I get to. Same thing while we're saying when nature calls is like finding showers. Once again, I fortunately right now have a very, I'll call it car-friendly town. So it's okay. And you can always find gyms and you can always, but being able to, I guess this probably goes back to, I think it was number 3, was keeping things cleanly. Is like, if you are somebody who likes things relatively clean and you like to shower daily, if you like clean clothes, if you like, different things that make you feel better if they're clean, it's something to think about, because even your cleanest things most times don't even really feel that clean. So either way, that one was kind of tangential, but yeah, I would say something I never thought about and that it still inconveniences me to this day. Now, if I was a van lifer, that would be different, because I could have something to pee in my van, but it's a little cramped here. You have to crawl back out, and depending on if you're being stealthy or not, so meaning if you're in a city and you don't want anybody to know you're sleeping in the back of your car, you have to climb back up through and go out your normal way like you've been sitting in your car for 4 hours for some reason. And yeah, but it's just another inconvenience that I forgot how much I disliked until I got back into it, and now I remember. So I would say those are my current top 5 things that I now remember hating about car lifing. And probably with time, this list will change as I figure out maybe better ways of existing and maybe decreasing the clutter load in my car. However, it is something that at this point you learn to, I'll call it, deal with, but really it's accept and not let it ruin your experience, because there's so many good things and beautiful things and wonderful things to living in your car. And there are, to any positive in life, there's always going to be a negative or many negatives, but it's maybe your outlook on these things and not letting them taint your experience. Dropping in deep and knowing that this is what you truly want to do, and doing it in spite of the things that maybe most would see as setbacks. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I look forward to seeing you guys soon. Car noise while you're trying to record is also a pet peeve.